Hello and welcome to the Pregnancy Playbook podcast. I'm Amy Strongman, your host, and I'm extremely passionate about this stage of womanhood. So whether you're just thinking about starting a family or in the early realms of motherhood, this is a space for you. We'll be talking all things preconception, pregnancy, birth and beyond. Each episode, I'll be sitting down with some amazing guests, sharing insights, experiences, expertise, and much, much more. So whether we are debusting some myths or learning something new, this space is for you. We really want this stage of womanhood to feel like a little less overwhelming and a lot more magical. This is maternal alchemy, and this transformational stage of womanhood, it's at its best. So let's put the kettle on, grab a cuppa, and let's join us and let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Pregnancy Playbook. This is the space that we remember that pregnancy is more than just a phase. It's a whole portal and a transformation. And today we are stepping into that portal with a woman whose words have sparked a quiet and at times thunderous revolution. My guest today is the extraordinary Milli Hill, writer, speaker, birth activist, and fierce advocate for women's voices. She's the founder of the Positive Birth Movement, the author of some of the most important books in the women's health space, the Positive Birth Book, Give Birth Like a Feminist, My Period, and her latest, Ultra Processed Women. Bestsellers and translated into 7 languages, they have radically shifted the conversation around birth and womanhood. Milli has dedicated her work to lifting the veil on how we speak about and experience birth. She's reminded us that birth isn't just a medical event, it is indeed a rite of passage, one that can echo through every season of our lives. She is a woman who has dared to speak where others stayed silent and has been celebrated by thousands, but she has also been cancelled for refusing to step back from her belief that women's voices matter in the birth room and beyond. But she's still here, still writing, still roaring, and still holding the line for bodily autonomy, female agency, and respectful care. And Milli, I think you have written, when we change the way we talk about birth, we change birth itself. And today we're going to be talking about how we reclaim our bodies, our stories, and our season. And really, it's a deep conversation to dive into just how important it is for us to speak about birth, but also how we use our voices to make a change. Yeah. So welcome, Milli. So lovely to have you here. Let me just put that there.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction.
It's a lot. But when you look back, I hope that you sort of see that, for me personally, your book, Give Birth Like a Feminist, changed completely the way I birth my children. And it was one of the books that I think most importantly, it shook up my thinking of what I thought I knew about giving birth. And I remember the quote from Germaine Greer that I think you included, which was about, women being like sheep dipped into the dip, and the disease that they are kind of being treated for is womanhood. And it just, I don't know, it was just such a shocking thing to read in a birth book, but then it really kind of transformed my thinking. So we can definitely touch on that a bit later. But
I can definitely say something about Germaine Greer.
But I really wanted to start to, I guess, more about your birth activism, because I personally don't believe you become a birth activist by accident. And it is something that, it really does matter to you. So could you perhaps start with just sharing a bit about your birth experience and kind of what made you become this really powerful advocate for women?
Well, it's always difficult to answer that question because it's kind of like lots of things kind of come together, don't you, in your life, kind of take you to particular places. But I mean, I think I was always a kind of feisty feminist woman, and, very interested in women's voices and women's rights. But I guess, like a lot of women of my generation anyway, I sort of thought, oh, great, I've been born at just the right time. All of these problems of feminism have been solved. Thanks, everyone. This is great. Equality within my relationship, equality within the workplace.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not being naive there. I know there are issues, but I mean, just generally speaking, compared to previous generations, we're in a pretty good place. And then, like many women, I got, came to be pregnant when I was in my early 30s. And I was like, this is like something has happened here. The way people were relating to me and talking to me, particularly within the healthcare system, was a little bit different. And I felt suddenly an imbalance of power that I'd never really directly experienced before. So I thought that was interesting. And that book you just referred to, from which the quote is taken, the Germaine Greer book, which is called The Whole Woman, was something that I'd read not that long previous to being pregnant. So that was in the back of my mind. And I thought, here we go, she's right. Something's going on here. So it's just really that switched on some light bulbs for me. But then I think like everything, you sort of think, well, am I being a bit sort of, over the top here? Come on, these people are just trying to do their job, and you are pregnant. And so you kind of go on a bit of a journey, well, I did anyway, of sort of trying to work out who's right, I suppose, and what actually the truth is, in terms of, is birth this incredibly dangerous event that has to be managed and that you should accept that?
Yeah.
Or is there something else going on? Is there, when you hear, like another book I read when I was pregnant for the first time is Ina May Gaskin's Guide to Childbirth.
Yeah.
You read the stories in that, and of course it's a hippie commune in America, so it's like a million miles away from your own reality, but they are, at the end of the day, they're still women giving birth.
Yes.
You read those stories and you think, that sounds very different to the stories that I'm hearing. So, what is actually going on here? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I think it started out as a personal quest to work out what the truth was about birth. And I did that through I've got 3 children, but my first birth confirmed that the system was right, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
I went in, I'm going to have a home birth. My friends, I had a friend who was a midwife, or 2 friends, different friends who are midwives. They both said, have a home birth.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. Then I went past my due date, and the whole system descended on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I went quite a long way past my due date. I hung on for, much longer than women now. I mean, this was 17 years ago.
Yeah.
Would manage to. I went to 42 weeks.
Wow, that is amazing, because there's lots of women like 39 weeks now are being offered induction.
Yeah, but I mean, it all still started at 39 weeks. The phone calls started, what are you going to do if you go past 40 weeks, blah, blah, blah. And you can't have a home birth if you go past this and da-da-da. It all still started, but I just managed to hold on for a bit longer. Anyway, then I ended up in hospital, had an induction, had an episiotomy, had forceps, and had the sort of classic, fairly traumatic birth experience. So then I was like, okay, so women's bodies don't really work that well, and they're right. But then something still nagged at me, and so I carried on writing, reading, and researching. And then my second baby, I did have my home birth in water.
I think I've seen a gorgeous photo.
Yeah, there is a photo of that
amazing
moment that I've shared a few times, and it was the most idyllic, beautiful birth experience. And my 2-year-old was around, and it was lovely. And it was, when I say easy, I mean it was really, really hard, but it was easy compared to what
it's the
can
external
happen.
factors, I think, as well. Like in a hospital, I'm going to probably talk about it with another guest, but it's the external people that we don't know. Whereas when you're at home, everything is familiar, everything is safe, everything is calm, because you've made it so. And it's a lot harder to do that when you're sort of being told by others and bright lights and strange places. So.
Absolutely. But I mean, also the midwives that I had in that birth experience were absolutely incredible. They understood that I didn't believe in myself, and they kind of brought that energy into the room for me. They knew I had never gone into labour spontaneously, and I'd never pushed a baby out, even though I was a mum of 1. So I didn't know whether my body could do either of those things. And again, I went to 42 weeks, and with my third baby, I went to 42 weeks. So it turns out that's
your gestation is 42 weeks.
I like to leave things to the last minute, and I'm like that in other areas as well, especially writing. So yeah, they came into that space, and they mothered me, but they didn't interfere. What they did was really exquisite, actually, because they didn't come in and say, right, we're taking over. And, they let me have my power, but they also had this energy that reassured me that I could do it. It was absolutely beautiful. So
incredible. It's like watchful attendance, isn't it? It's that they're there, you can feel their presence, but they're just witnessing you really step into your power and sovereignty, which is, it's a very special time. That's amazing that you got to experience it. But that's what I mean in my work. I find that a lot of women have had a traumatic first birth. I mean, birth is trauma anyway, I think, on the body anyway. It is impactful, but when you're having another baby, you're wanting to do it differently, because you just can't believe that that's how it should feel when this, it is amazing to bring new life into the world.
So I was just going to finish off and say, that it was those experiences that kind of brought me to activism, because I think you have to go on a personal journey before you can sort of, really understand what you're advocating for.
Yes.
And I just felt like hearing other women's birth stories about not being allowed, and you know, being very sort of like traumatized afterwards, they just really ignited that fire in me as well to sort of think, you know, there must be a better way than this.
And were you able to do that with your third baby as well?
Yeah, I had another home birth with my third baby. Yeah, it was quite different. It was overnight instead of in the day.
Yes.
And I was really scared for different reasons that time, partly because I was quite high profile, not, you know, generally speaking, but like in the arena of maternity, I was writing a lot in the press about birth. And I thought, what if it really goes wrong? I had all these doubts and fears again. I think that's like a normal part of giving birth. But it is hard, you know, like you might have if you were going to do something else really challenging, like
but also you can't
Everest.
believe you can do it again. That's what I found, because I had both my children at home, but the second time I was like, surely the first one was a fluke, you know, surely this doesn't happen. It's a small percentage of women having home births. Maybe that's not me for a second time, and it does get you. And then you've also got the fear of, you know, what if it does go wrong? Exactly. It can't be the same every time.
Yeah, I thought I might become this poster girl for the idiotic home birther, you know, like if it did go wrong. Do you see what I mean?
Oh, she says all this, but no, look, she's done
something really bad has happened. I'd be on the front page of a paper or something. That was quite scary. And also my second baby was massive. She was £10
That is big. Wow.
And so I was thinking, I had a hunch that the third one was a boy, which he was. And I was thinking, what if he's even bigger? And I was like,
But I like really to say that in some of my classes, like if you were told that you're going to have a £10 baby at home, no pain meds, you couldn't believe it.
No.
Like our society doesn't let us believe that, because we're sort of told, no, it's too big. Now there's a lot of focus on the growth. And so it is amazing.
And then if you actually do it, you think that was a fluke.
Exactly. Oh, that's incredible. And it is amazing, because it's not just, I know it's your personal journey, but the fact that you're able to share it with the world makes such a huge difference. And I know for a fact I recommend all your books to all my clients, but I think just reaching other women who are, you know, preparing for planning for something different will be a huge thing. So we talked about the advocacy, but what was missing, do you think, when, you know, you sort of touched a bit about it when you were sort of becoming pregnant, but what do you think was missing at the time? Like, you know, because when you wrote your book, clearly there was something, you know, we had all the birth books from like the 1980s that my mum sort of gave to me, but what was missing for you, do you think, in your sort of preparation for birth?
Well, I think one of the things was the sort of polarization. So it was kind of like either, and you know, picking up on what we've just been talking about as well, you know, I think it's really important to say that just because I had those home birth experiences, that's kind of not what I've always been advocating for other women.
Yeah.
I think, you know, it tended to be like either you go through the completely alternative path, you know, and you have your home birth with your tea lights and everything in a pool, or you just go to hospital and do what you're told. And I think, you know, that was a bit the way it came across to me anyway in my first pregnancy was you had to take had to be very alternative in order to have this positive experience. Yeah. And what I've always been advocating for, I think, is, you know, a positive birth for all women, that no matter what the woman chooses or no matter what complications she might have or whatever, you know, it should be you know, she should be able to still come to the other side of that, not feeling traumatized, not feeling like she's been hit by a truck or disrespected in any way, or, you know, any of those
feel like
things.
A goddess. Yeah. And have that sense of achievement of whatever it might be.
Yeah, even a cesarean, even an elective cesarean, whatever happens, or an emergency cesarean, or any kind of birth should be an amazing positive experience. And there should only be a very tiny minority of women who have a traumatic birth. And at the moment, it's completely the flip of that, isn't it?
Completely. And do you think it's a control element for women? Do you feel like if women feel like they are in control, it is likely that they will feel more positive about their birth? Or do you think it takes a lot of preparing for, planning?
I think control is really important. And maybe being in control and being female are two things that we feel a bit anxious about putting together. Like, oh, is she being a diva? She wants to control everything. You know, she's got this laminated birth plan. What an idiot. You know, you hear a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. And the reason I'm asking, because I just was thinking that exactly that is like control, because birth is uncontrollable in essence. We have no idea how it's going to pan out and play out. And I've just noticed there's sort of more anxiety, I think, possibly involved with feeling lack of control in the birth space. But actually knowing what you want and what you desire and what you wish for, it can be really, really helpful. Not diva-ish, not kind of, you know, stamping your foot, I want this, but actually taking ownership of something that is entirely your own experience. No one else is experiencing having a baby but the woman involved. And yet we sort of hand it over to strangers.
And I think the woman, you know, another thing I've written is that the woman giving birth should be the most powerful person in the room.
Yes.
And, you know, that does involve being in control. I don't think there should be many situations in birth in which a woman feels things are out of her control. You know, she should always have bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
And she should always be the key decision maker and a highly respected voice in the experience. So, yeah, I don't think birth should be a situation in which you feel things are completely out of control, really. You know, a lot of preparation can help you to maximise your chances of having So I think there's this sort of idea that what happens to women is just pot luck. It's like, you know, just you know, random selection, right? You're going to have a amazing easy birth. Yours is going to be 3 days of labour, awful trauma, ends in cesarean, and it's like, as a pregnant woman, you sort of think, which one am I going to be?
Yes.
It's going to be just like this random thing that fate decides. And I think we need to really get rid of that idea, you know, because I think that actually thinking about what you want in pregnancy and becoming informed can change that for you.
100%.
And also the system needs to think about that too, because I think the way that the system builds, you know, services for women also has an impact on, you know, what happens to her. So it's not all on the woman, like, oh, if you do all these things, then you're going to have the perfect birth, because you can do all those things, then go into a system that doesn't understand female physiology and still struggle, and it's not your fault. You're in
a box that doesn't really is not moving to your needs, and
it's kind of against the odds for you. You know, the odds are stacked against you sometimes, I think. So
it's really tough, isn't it? And I think there needs to be more stories shared, I think, about these positive experiences. I know that your book was obviously a huge sort of a key, if you like, to unlocking that, oh, this is possible. I know you touched on Ina May Gaskin's book as well, which it sort of feels sometimes a bit too far removed from where we are now, but knowing how medicalised birth has become and really kind of tilting over towards like America, where it's kind of the normal to have a medicalised birth and subnormal to have this wonderful home birth experience. Yeah, I know those women who have experienced physiological birth it's become sort of this sort of, they want to share it, but there's this kind of quashing because I can't share it because I know that lady's had a more traumatic birth than me, and I don't want to be sort of seen to be like, oh, I had an amazing time in the birth space. But if we don't hear those stories, how is society growing if we're not able to share? Sorry, that was just me questioning out loud, but it's really tough. I find really tough.
It's true, but I mean, one thing that has changed since, you know, I started writing about birth and started the positive birth movement is social media has really bloomed in that area. I mean, when I was pregnant for, was it the first or the second time, I think it was the second time. Yeah, the first time I was pregnant, I didn't watch any birth films at all, even though I could have probably sought them out because I was too scared. And the second time I was pregnant, there was this thing. I mean, this makes me sound ancient because it's like now we're like, what do you mean there was no Instagram? But there wasn't.
Where are you getting your info?
Yeah, there was this thing. We did have the internet then. But there was this thing called mybirth.tv.
Wow.
And it was online. And there was like literally about a dozen birth films on it. And I went on and I watched this woman, and she was, I wish I could find the woman.
Oh, gosh.
She was
incredible.
in a pool and it was all dark in the room. And there was, you couldn't see anyone else apart from her, which for me was like, what? Hang on a minute, where are all the other people? You know, it's really, you know, it was completely revelatory to me. And she was just rocking on her hands and knees in this pool and sort of making some quiet noises. And then suddenly she became a lot more active and sort of made a lot more noise. And she just brought this baby to the surface.
I love it.
And I'd never seen anything like it, because all I'd ever seen was like the school video. Yeah, on your back, on a bed with everyone around you and your nightie on and everything, and it all being very sort of like weird, like almost a bit like The Dentist. Like, but creepy.
Yes.
So yeah, this film, that was really amazing to me. But obviously now, you know, since then, that's completely changed. And women can now see, you know, beautiful films, like professionally incredible made films of water birth and home birth and positive cesarean and everything that they want to watch. So I think that's really, really a game changer.
It is fascinating. I have a really interesting relationship because I'm always a bit nervy about watching because I find it's such a sacred moment. So I'm really like, oh, but I've been at 2 births, and for me, that is enough to be like, yeah, there's the goddess in the room, and you know, to watch it and witness it is just incredible. And imagine if everyone could watch a physiological birth, or at least see it. And of course, I know there's, you know, even if you know you're having a cesarean, to be able to see what happens and to understand the situation you're going to be in, I think just takes away that element of fear as well. But that is incredible that you can you can now actually watch births, which is great, and you can have a big view of what you want to achieve. But I think with your, you know, saying that you didn't have, I mean, who do we talk to back then? Like, you know, what did women do? Where was the loss of connection of the thread? I'm intrigued by, you know, our mothers' generations. It was very, you just didn't talk about it at birth. And now we have this kind of really lovely platform to be able to share more and learn more and listen to more and stories. And
yeah, I think that's allowed, you know, that's challenged the point you made earlier about how, you know, women feel anxious about sharing their positive birth stories. At least it means that there is a place to join those dots for pregnant women where they can actually seek out, if they want to, a different narrative to what you might expect, you know, and see those positive birth experiences. But yeah, I think just birth moving out of the community and into hospital was probably where that red thread got broken between, you know, generations. And then trauma as well, you know. Lots of women have experiences that they don't want to share with their daughters and say, you know, when they're pregnant, and say, you know, this is going to be really good. You know, imagine, I mean, I can't wait. I'm already telling my daughters about how great it was.
It's brilliant to have that message. Yeah, my mum took to her bed after I gave birth to my second. She witnessed and it was 30 years of birth trauma. She just could not. I mean, she never passed it on to me, but she just couldn't believe that I was having a baby at home in a pool and holding that all in for me to then have to witness it and it all come out. It's a really big deal, I think. And there's lots of, I don't know, I think both of us have sat in circle with Jane Hardwicke Collins, but to be in that situation, and I just, you know, with women from all ages honouring this incredible kind of shared experience that we have all together was really very, very powerful. So just moving on, I'd love to think about sort of the women outside the birth room. So we have this kind of, I think it is totally primal, it unleashes something. I think my theory is that it releases the kind of the energy in the chakra in the base of this pelvis, and we just, creativity blooms, and now we want to roar about it and we step into our power. And it affects us, doesn't it, all through the seasons of womanhood. And I know, you know, there's the kind of linking. You talked a bit about, you know, our own birth experiences, but also how it's linked now, I'm sure, into the menarche and our first bleed, and how all that kind of trajects for our next rites of passage. So I'm guessing I want to ask is, how do you think the power and transformation of birth echoes into the other seasons? So how would you kind of interpret that sort of birth itself and how that translates into the rest of our lives?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a massively important day, you know, in the sense that it isn't just one day. Women remember that experience forever, don't they? So there's that element to it. I think the fact, you know, that obviously the majority of women have, you know, a very difficult traumatic experience of birth, that they harbour that trauma for the rest of their lives. They take that forward into other experiences, not just other female biological experiences, but life experiences, because it knocks your confidence and your sense of self massively, I think, to have any kind of trauma in your life. But then there's the flip side to that as well. It's like, what do women who have a really incredible experience, who contact that deep sense of power, what did they take forward? And so when we build this system that traumatizes women, we're taking away something from women, as well as giving thousands of women trauma to carry forward. We're actually depriving them of something as well, I think. But the other interesting point is the way all of these life experiences connect. You mentioned Jane Hardwicke Collins, and she was the woman who kind of put on a light bulb for me about the connection between menarche or menarche, I think is how no one really knows how we say that. But yeah, your first period and birth. You know, she said to me, when a woman, you know, if she's a 25-year-old woman is pregnant and going to give birth, and she might read a book about birth, it is in many ways can be too late for her to get these positive messages, because when we really need to get them is as children, and in particular as we come to puberty and first period. And that I found really interesting. That was one of the reasons why I wrote the book about periods for 9 to 12-year-old girls, because I thought actually there is a really missed opportunity, like culturally, to give young girls a really amazing message about what it means to be female and the power of the female body. Whereas quite often it's presented as a weakness or a kind of a short straw, as if, the male, nice, clean, non-cyclical body that doesn't do much sort of leaking or, changing is the best body. And then we're like oh dear,
it's
what went wrong
annoying.
there? It's the spare rib, it's all that stuff, isn't it? So, I think there's a lot of cultural baggage around that we take it all on board, and all the sort of shame that some women get passed on to them from, parents, grandparents, the intergenerational trauma of what kind of birth did your mum have, what kind of first period did your mum have, what kind of birth did your grandma have, what's come down the line and ended up with you. And you get a lot of that as a child, and you get a lot of that around your first period. And then all of that's in you when you become pregnant. And I think that kind of like core sense of, I can do this, my body is, knows what it's doing, is quite often not there. And there's a lot of doubt. So you might read a book like I did, of Ina May Gaskin's birth stories and think, oh, wow, this is amazing, I'm going to do that. But if there's this
inner
huge doubt within you, that's what I was saying about what the midwives brought to me. They brought something extra in that I was missing in that second birth, and sort of magically plonked it into my birth space for me. I don't know how they did it.
Yeah. It's amazing, but it is so important that you need it. Yeah,
so women need other women like that to do that for them. But even more, I think they need those messages when they're young girls, that their bodies are quite cool, actually, and that their bodies, I don't want to say are made to do this, because that kind of makes it sound like they're, there's some kind of external creator, which there isn't necessarily, but that we work, our bodies work.
Yeah.
And then it's interesting, the whole menopause thing as well, and how that fits together with that, because again, that's another experience that is framed as a very, there's all this discussion, isn't there, about why do women live past menopause? And I'm sitting there thinking, that's an interesting question. Like, why are you still here?
Oh, gosh.
Why is everyone discussing this about basically women my age? Like, what are you still doing here? Why haven't you died? It's so weird. Like,
what's your purpose? Gosh, that is mad, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's a lot of that kind of stuff. And obviously in our culture, the whole thing about youthful and beauty, and how that is your value, and then when you become older and your face starts to go a bit south, then maybe you're not as as interesting anymore.
I disagree entirely. I think there's so much richness that comes with age, and the wisdom and everything that we get to share is so important. Oh, it's horrible when you think about a society like that. Gosh. And with your, just touching on that about the menopause, and you've got a new book coming out all about sort of how our bodies are, how we've been taught to connect with our bodies or not connect. And I was just thinking actually about that. It's the same with that disconnect to our own bodies sort of through our first bleeds. And it's sort of something that's extra that we don't really want to deal with. And yet when we become sort of quite whole, it becomes much a power, and actually the vessel is what we need to take care of, I think. So what would society look like, Milli, to you, if we truly honoured the full spectrum of the female experience, from first bleed to our final breath? I know that's a mega question, but I think there is some depth to that, but it would be lovely to kind of get your thoughts on that big one.
That is a really big question, because I mean, how would we change it? What would we like to be different? I mean, it's on a massive scale, isn't it? Really, I mean, obviously we need to, change get rid of patriarchy, maybe have matriarchy, which
yes, it still exists somewhere in the world.
Very interesting topic. Lots of people think matriarchy just means, the women in charge instead of the men. But actually, it's a whole different structure of culture and society where there isn't this need to always dominate and have power over, and it's more about power within. I think in a way that's kind of key to it all. It's key to it all when you think about birth as well. You know, the birth system that we have at the moment is about power over, and it's I want people to know that I'm talking about the deep under the surface stuff and the bigger picture stuff. I'm not talking about individuals here. I'm not saying an individual doctor or midwife goes into the room wanting to have power over. I'm talking about the structure and the kind of, if you think of it all as a big metaphor rather than like focusing on individual people's choices. So if you look at it like that, like a kind of, imagine it's a story in a book or a play, and what's it actually representing? What's the meaning of it? What's it all about? And I think it's, definitely a story of dominance and power over. And a lot of women will perhaps feel that if, that was their experience, that they were dominated and their power was taken away and other people in the room had the power. Whereas being female is about power within. That is our power. It's like a quiet power that's just there. So I don't know if I might be waffling on and talking rubbish. But
it's important.
You did ask quite a difficult question.
Yeah, I did. That was really tricky. But also because I think it's so. I just feel, because obviously the topic around birth and childbirth, but I think more so just seeing your line of books and how you've kind of evolved with your writing too, with your kind of channeling your own seasons as you're journeying through them, which I just think is amazing anyway. But I just was curious how to, looking back, if you like, reflecting back now, how just small changes might actually affect women's experience of life. I know it's kind of, that is really big. It's probably not the best question, but
we need to teach girls about the periods in a completely different way, and which is happening to a certain extent. We need to change the way the birth system is structured completely. We need to change the physical birth space is a massive one. I mean, that's all structured with the needs of the birth attendants in mind rather than the needs of the woman in mind. So all of those sort of practical changes would make a big difference. I think there are lots of positive changes happening. People are changing the way we talk about menopause. We have changed. We're having this conversation now. Women are doing things that are making a difference. But change is always slow, isn't it? Yeah.
So looking forward then, and having the kind of the legacy, we just touched about that, sort of meeting young girls at their point of puberty, or even before really understanding their bodies. What do you hope that the next generation of women, and you've got daughters, I've got sons, but what do you hope your daughters, in essence, understand about their body and their power? Like, what's the key thing that you would, if you had one message to give to them, what would it be?
Well, as a mum, I think you always know that your children will find their own path and that it might be different to the choices that you made. So I'm excited to see what they come up with and how they navigate being a woman. I've got 2 daughters and a son, and I'm excited to see how he navigates being a man, because obviously the world is always changing. So I can't say I want them to have a home birth, just like I did, because they'll do what they want to do and they'll find their own path through it. But I hope I have given them some sense of that power within, and that that core confidence, which I think is sometimes missing, was definitely missing for me. And I'm not blaming my mum for that, by the way. She's listening. I'm just blaming the wider culture. But I think and that they now have to navigate a lot of other complexities in the culture that we probably didn't have. So
just trusting that inner knowing, isn't it? Really, having that sense of self. Thank you. And if we healed birth, do you think we could heal more? Do you think if we really got birth sorted and women felt their power and could experience these positive births, do you think more things would happen for the positive?
Yes, I do think that it would make a big difference, actually. And I sometimes, if I'm feeling particularly conspiratorial, wonder whether it's deliberate that isn't happening, if that makes sense.
Interesting, yes.
Because I think it serves patriarchy well for us to feel on the back foot and for us to feel like we're inadequate in some way and not as good as men. And I think the birth, the way it is at the moment, kind of demonstrates that to women quite well. Again, remembering that I'm talking about the big sort of wide picture of it all rather than individual practitioners' choices. But something's going on where I think there's been a big backlash as well against the positive birth movement, not just my positive birth movement, but just generally against feminism and against, a lot of the stuff that was happening in the sort of pre-pandemic years, those first couple of decades of the 21st century. I felt like women were really getting somewhere with changing birth.
Yes.
And I think the pandemic was a real power grab back, and we've gone in a worse direction now. So
that's so interesting. I mean, I started my business in the pandemic for the reason that there was no services available for pregnant women, and I just could not fathom that these women were going on their own, and it was the biggest fear that they were going to be by themselves giving birth in a place that was totally alien. But it's a shame because we didn't really touch on the positive birth movement already, but you really set it up in a way that it was women supporting women, supporting women, supporting women. Like, it was such a ripple effect and had profound impact sort of all over the country and probably globally, actually. I'm sure it did reach further afield.
Oh, it did. There was like 350 or 400 groups all over the world at its peak.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's what we need back. We kind of need to have this, because more and more groups, even the hospitals are closing their antenatal education. And so it's trying to find these pockets of kind of education and learning and support and love, really, actually, at a time when it kind of, that's what you need. You need someone to be your cheerleader and help you through.
Yeah.
So we're just finishing up for our session, but I always ask my guests what they would give to anyone listening who is on this pathway, whether it be pathway of pregnancy, getting pregnant, or motherhood. So you can pick your audience member, but I think if you're, speaking about birth, it probably would be good for pregnancy. So what gift would you give a pregnant woman listening?
Well, I would say knowledge is power. So don't let people tell you, oh, it's all potluck. We talked about that earlier. Yeah. Don't listen to those people. And remember that it does matter how your birth goes. It's okay. It's not selfish of you to feel invested in having a positive experience and not coming to the side completely traumatized. That's not selfish. Your pregnancy matters, your birth matters. You will remember it all for the rest of your life. So do some homework and try and make as many choices as you can, sort of maximise your chances of having that positive experience. Talk to other women, get good support, all of those things. And, don't bury your head in the sand, because fear can make you do that, can't it? Fear can make you bury your head in the sand and just think, oh, well, it's all potluck anyways. It doesn't matter what I do. Yeah. That's quite a disempowering place to put yourself in. So take the reins, do some homework, and believe in yourself, and hopefully have a positive experience.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, you do. That is amazing. What wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Milli, and thank you so much for joining me here today. Maybe you'll be back for another season. That would be great. And thank you all for listening and for watching, and I'll see you next time.